Wonderful. Thank you, Adam. I appreciate it. I'm thrilled to be here today. I hope you're all doing well and really look forward to having a conversation with you. I have water instead of coffee, so I hope that's all right, but about emotional intelligence. Here's how we're going to roll through today. We're going to start with introductions. Like Adam said, I want to know about you, and I also want to know why you're here today. And I'm going to share a little bit about myself. Then we're going to dive in. What's the difference between IQ and EQ, and why does it matter, or does it matter? Then we'll talk about EQ at work and life. I'm a big believer that we're single human beings. We can't divide between personal and professional lives, and EQ is critical in both stages. So we'll talk about that. And we'll spend most of the time today, I'll share with you a model of emotional intelligence and talk about specific ways, no cost ways, practical ways that we can all strengthen our emotional intelligence. So we'll think of a situation of your own, and then you'll leave here with a tool and a way to strengthen your own emotional intelligence. All right, let's start with introductions. Because I'm presenting, I get to go first. I know, selfish, but what do you do? I am Dawn Zerbs. As Adam said, I get to coach top level leaders that get it. And when I say get it, I mean a few different things. First, my clients, they inspire me. They're wonderful. They get that it's all about people and performance. It's about raising and elevating teams and elevating and raising profits in the nonprofit space or the for-purpose space that's elevating the number of people we can serve, right? So they get that. And they also get that working with a coach isn't a I need help statement. It's a, you know what? I could make an even bigger difference if someone walked along beside me, partnered with me to help me get the really big, important things done. So that's what I mean when I say I get to work with clients that get it. Little about me. I already told you that one. I work as an executive coach. I started my career in the nonprofit land, went to Merit School of Music in Chicago right after I went to school in Nebraska, and was a development assistant raising money. Merit School of Music provides classical music education for kids regardless of their ability to pay. So my huge passion spot is music and kids and access regardless of financial situation. So I started my career in nonprofit, love serving the same passion area. We've been in Kansas City about 15 years. And I've served on Kansas City Young Audiences Board 6 years, and then they kicked me off at Band of Angels 5 years until they kicked me off. So I love serving on boards now in the nonprofit space and help them with strategic planning and things too. I love to learn, I love to read, and I am a certified social and emotional intelligence coach. So it's probably, that might be one of the reasons I'm here today. And then just so you get a little sense of my personal self, this is the crazy clan that I hang out with a lot of times. We were trying to levitate, and you'll notice I have the least vertical jumping abilities in my family. All right, enough about me. I would love to know about you. If you all could jump in the chat and share with me what inspired you to be here today. Is there something specific that you'd hope to learn? So why are you here today? Tell me in the chat. Thank you, Catherine. Ooh, mine are 10 and 13. So Laura, we should probably talk afterwards. I'm actually reading another really good parenting book that I'd love to share. So ping me. What other reasons? Is anybody here because they had to be? Don't tell me that. We'll make it fun, I promise. Leadership, absolutely. Oh, Jennifer, thank you. Refugees and immigrants. Okay, wonderful. This is definitely, you are all in the right place. Wonderful. Well, thank you. Thank you for being here. And let's dive in and get started. Seventy. 70% of top leaders fail within 18 months of being in a new role. 70%. What do you think of when you hear that huge number? Well, the thing I think of it is why? Why do so many top level, talented, smart people fail so quickly in top leadership roles? Well, the good news is the study that gave us that 78%, it also gave us the top 3 reasons why these executives fail. The top 3 reasons, you want to know what they are? People, politics, and culture. People, politics, and culture. I don't know about you, but I haven't really been anywhere in life that doesn't include all 3 of those things. So if that's why people fail, how do we ensure that we succeed? What is it that somebody needs in order to be successful in leadership positions, in any work positions, and in life? Well, what we all need to successfully navigate people, politics, and culture is a really, really high, strong, and intentional focus on emotional intelligence quotient. Emotional intelligence quotient is what we're here to talk about today. I'm thrilled to be here. We're going to dive right in and go into IQ versus EQ because we already did the introductions. Okay, IQ versus EQ. I want to hear from you. When you hear the letters IQ, what words come to mind? Share with me in the chat. What is IQ? 1 or 2 words that IQ means to you. Intelligence? Rational thinking? Yeah, yeah. All right, now how about EQ? When you hear the letters EQ, what comes to mind? And don't worry if not a lot comes to mind, we'll talk about that in a bit too. But what do you think of when you think of EQ? Ability to empathize. Awesome, thank you, Laura. Dr. Karma, emotional intelligence. I love it. All the myriad of influences. Yeah. Equalizer settings on my car stereo. Adam, I knew we were going to get along. Thank you, you guys. And you have the big picture of IQ and EQ. Here is what we're going to do. We're going to dig in a little further. And we are going to first do a textbook definition of IQ and EQ. And then I'm going to explain to you how I see it. And I see the world in pictures. I love words, but I also see the world in pictures. So I'm going to show you the picture of how I see IQ and EQ. First, though, let's do the textbook, or one of the many, actually, textbook definitions. Like anything in life, there's very rarely a single definition. So I chose 2, and I want to share with you what they are. IQ. As one of you said, IQ is short for intelligence quotient. It's the measure of a person's reasoning ability. Somebody said exactly that. In short, it's supposed to gauge how well someone can use information and logic to answer questions or make predictions. IQ tests began to assess this by measuring short and long-term memory. They also measure how well people can solve puzzles and recall information they've heard, and how quickly. How quickly can I get to that information that it's in my brain and pull it up? IQ, I think of this, the standardized tests that we all had to take. Funny story about that. I picked my son up from middle school the other day. He handed me an envelope in the car and he said, "Mom, this is one of those dumb things that thinks they can measure your intelligence by filling in bubbles or multiple choice." So IQ, his opinion, he's 13, IQ is your intelligence and your knowledge. EQ, what's the definition of that? EQ, short for emotional intelligence quotient, is the ability to be aware of our own emotions and those of others in the moment so that we can use the information we have to manage ourselves and manage our relationships. A key piece to emotional intelligence is that it's in the moment. It ebbs and it flows. Blake and Adam, if questions come up, I might not be able to see them, so feel free to jump in and let me know if questions come up. And I want to encourage all of you, if there's something that I say that sparks a question, type it in the chat right away. One of the things about our minds is we think we'll remember and then we don't. So type your question in right away, and then Adam and Blake will help me out when and interrupt me so that we can make sure to answer your question. Okay. We've heard from you, your thoughts on IQ and EQ, read a couple textbook definitions. I want to show you how I see it. Here's how I see it. I see IQ as our head, all the knowledge, the information, the intellect, the stuff, the multiple choice answers we've learned. And then I see EQ as the heart. Now, the critical part in this picture, though, is that they're holding hands. IQ is the stuff you know. EQ is how you use what you know in order to make a difference in somebody else's life or in your own life. So EQ is knowing where, when, how, and who to use that information with. So IQ and EQ are holding hands, are linked, because EQ, I kind of think of it as the gateway. A high EQ allows you to successfully use your information and knowledge and skills to make a difference in the world. So that's how I see it. Some specific examples. Think of IQ, let's go back to school. Think of IQ as the grade you got on the test. Okay, now have any of you been in the principal's office? Or were you? Or perhaps, I think it was Laura, if your children have been in the principal's office, something about EQ most likely landed them in the principal's office. Okay, we are going to dive a little deeper. Blake, do you mind starting the poll? We're going to have a quick 3-question poll, and I'm going to see how you do and then explain a little more about IQ and EQ.
Can you see the poll on your side?
No, I cannot.
Okay, well.
I had a song, I can't sing, but I had a song for backup. Blake, do you want me to go ahead and start?
It looks like I can launch it, so I'm going to go ahead and do that.
Thanks, Adam.
So everyone should see it now.
Awesome. Hey, if everybody would jump in, please, and answer the 3 questions about the answers. Is it IQ or EQ? It looks like EQ or IQ, which is newer, which is fixed early in life, and which one can be measured? All right, wonderful, wonderful. Can we share the answers with everybody? Thank you guys for participating in the poll. I appreciate it, and I will dive in.
Yeah, I'm going to end the polling and then I'm going to share the results. So everyone should see the polling results.
Terrific. Let's drill down on these. Number one, which is newer? 100% of you said that EQ is newer, and you've got it right. So here's a little more information. IQ, the term intelligence quotient, was coined by a French psychologist named Alfred Binet in 1912. EQ was a term that was coined in 1990 by two American psychologists. And it didn't become popular until 1995 when a book named Emotional Intelligence was written by Daniel Goleman. In 1995 is really when emotional intelligence became a business and a human behavior kind of buzzword, if you will. So you all nailed that. Emotional intelligence is much, much newer. And if you don't know that much about it, no worries. And if you know a ton about it, that's awesome. And just like all of the neuroscience and the behavioral economics kind of research and science is going on, we're learning more and more every day. So it's a really exciting topic. Fixed early in life, we have some discrepancy. 40% thinks it said EQ and 60% said IQ. Well, here is this answer, and then we'll double click on this because there's a lot of details into this answer. It was originally believed that IQ was fixed early in life. It was something that before you were 10, you were at the ceiling, and your ceiling only went up based on your age. So that's what was originally believed. Now, EQ has always been known, and always, right, only since 1990, that it's like a muscle. It can grow throughout your life, and it's in the moment. So I might have been great at a moment this morning and really a hot mess in a moment this afternoon. So, but EQ can always be strengthened and developed. Now back to IQ, fixed early in life. There is a really rich and robust debate going on about that right now and what that means. So it's important that know that that's what was originally believed. But how I look at things like that is, we used to think that if we had an infection, if we put leeches on the infection, it would suck out the infection. Sounds reasonable. Well, we've learned, we've evolved, and we're like, oh, that doesn't work anymore. So I'm wondering, I don't know, I'm not a scientist, but I'm wondering if we'll learn the same about IQ. The third question is, which one can be measured? This was a trick question. They both can be measured. IQ is measured with the standardized tests that we talked about, the ones that my son thinks are pretty silly. His story was really funny. He's like, Mom, who cares about, for example, the volume of your trash can? He goes, all you need to know is how much stuff can fit into it. So I thought that was a very interesting IQ, right? How to do the volume or the area, volume of a trash can. And EQ, how do I apply that volume to how much stuff I can get in my trash can? So IQ, the standardized tests we're all probably very familiar with. The school district that we're in it's called MAP, and it stands for a measure of academic progress. So IQ tests. EQ can also be measured. There are, as soon as Daniel Goleman wrote the book, Emotional Intelligence assessments popped up everywhere. The assessment we're going to use is from the Institute of Social and Emotional Intelligence. And the framework that you're going to learn today is one, it's used in 75% of the Fortune 500 companies. So it's a pretty standard one, but know that there are many different assessment tools. for EQ. So none of them are right or wrong, they just have differences. And if you want any more details on the different assessments, please let me know. All right, I am going to stop sharing the results. Let's take a quick pause. Are there any high-level questions on the difference between IQ and EQ? If so, put them in the chat. Oh, Adam, you're way ahead of me. You already put that in the chat. Cool. Okay, let's keep going and then just add your questions in as you have them. Okay, we're now going to talk about EQ at work and in life. As I talked about before, we can't separate ourselves. We are one person. However, our emotional intelligence, you might find that in different situations, you're better at the same emotional intelligence competency than in another situation. Take, for example, empathy. You might at work in your one-on-one be terrific at really listening and tuning in and understanding and feeling what somebody else is feeling. Then perhaps if your friend has annoyed you, your empathy, even though you have the ability, your empathy might tank if you're annoyed in a certain situation. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about EQ at work and life. And we're going to give an example. We're going to figure out for this EQ, when we have EQ failures, who do we blame? So 70% of the transitions into new roles fail. Who is to blame? We're going to take an example. There was a lead of HR, a CHRO of GM. We're going to call him Bob. He was there 8 months. So Bob was at GM for 8 months. He did not successfully navigate people, politics, and culture, even though one might assume that that's his space, the organizational psychology, the HR space. So we're going to decide, should we blame the person? Should we blame Bob for this failure? Or should we blame the situation? Do we need to blame GM? Do we need to blame the auto industry at the time? Do we need to blame the people on the HR team? Perhaps it was their fault. So what do you think? Who are we going to blame? You know this answer. We're not going to blame either or. Life is not that simple. It's and. The failures of all of us happen at the intersection of who we are and the situation that we're in. Think of the dynamics of this. People, we're always changing. I'm not the same today as I was yesterday. I'm not the same in the morning and then I was the afternoon. People are always changing and the situation is always changing and the failures happen in the intersection. And what we need to successfully navigate that intersection is EQ. So EQ is critical at work and it's only becoming more important. And it's becoming more important for 3 reasons. First is your role. As you move up in an organization, EQ becomes increasingly important. EQ is always important, but as you move up, it becomes more a part of your day. You spend more of your time in the EQ space, and you need to be better and better at it. Let's give a banking example. You need, say it's your first job. You're hired as a credit analyst. You need to know the credit analyst stuff. You need to know the skills and knowledge, the IQ. You do amazing reports, pristine reports, and you know all the formulas. It's fantastic. One day, you get tapped on the shoulder and somebody says, hey, can you manage the credit department? You say, sure. So now you're managing the credit department. What's becoming more important? EQ. EQ and IQ, I need to look over the work, I need to train, I need to develop, but I need to understand how my team is doing. I need to understand what Sally needs differently than what Sam needs. Then one day you come into work, right? You have a really fast-paced, progressive career. You get tapped on the shoulder Hey, do you want to be the president of the bank? You say, sure. Now what do you think you're using more or almost all? Yeah, it's EQ. One of my clients was a controller, and then he was promoted to CFO. And the switch is really dramatic. You go from mostly IQ and amazingness and brilliance and information to how do I inspire other leaders that have all of that brilliance and information and knowledge? So as you move up in the organization, EQ becomes increasingly important. Technology. Think of how we did things just a few years ago. Think about the Dewey Decimal System. Think about sets of encyclopedias. Well, it's not our world anymore. Technology gives us so much information at our fingertips. We don't have to worry about what the actual answer is. We can find it. So then what do we do as humans? So an Oxford study says that 35% of jobs that are in place today or that we have and hold today will be replaced by technology in 20 years. Artificial intelligence, voice recognition. I mean, think about the last time you sat around with a group of friends and a question came up. How long did that question linger? Not long. If you're inside, somebody asked Alexa or said, hey, Google, or hey, Siri to your phone. The cool thing is now technology gives us the answers of the facts. And then as humans, we get to then take the conversation to the next level and connect to the dots or even go deeper and into deeper, richer conversations. So technology is another reason why EQ is going to become increasingly important. The most important thing, and likely the reason you're all here, EQ matters because of the legacy we want to leave. Legacy at work, one of my favorite definitions is this. Your legacy is how others think of work because of having worked with you. That's big. And our legacy is not about us, but it's about how our behaviors, our actions, our inspiration, our leadership made a difference on others. So EQ is the connection between you and others. EQ in your life and in your professional life is what helps you to make that difference. It's really important to understand that emotional intelligence and intelligence quotient aren't opposites at all. It's not one or the other, one's more important than the other. They're both critically important. It's the unique intersection of the both, like we just talked about. And I had the pleasure of giving a presentation for Enterprise University, and Jeff Carson on social media the day before said this, and I just loved it. IQ sets the floor for your career, right? It gets you into that credit analyst job, and EQ sets the ceiling. As you rise, EQ becomes more and more important, and strengthening and being intentional about your EQ is what will then set the ceiling for your career. I'm going to check over in chat, see if there are any questions. No? When questions come up, let me know. All right, now we're going to dive into emotional intelligence, the model, how it's structured, and then I am going to ask all of you to do an exercise, and you'll leave then identifying an area of where you would like to improve your EQ and how to do it. Before we jump into that specific exercise, I want to show you how it's set up. And again, like I said before, there are many different models. This is a pretty standard model, but I want you to know that it's not the only model. So the Institute for Social and Emotional Intelligence, I was fortunate to be able to get my certification there. And how they lay out EQ is in a 2x2 grid. And if any of you have been with a boss or been with somebody that thinks anything in life can be laid out on a 2x2 grid, this is for you. This is for them. So here's how the grid works, and here's how it's laid out. The first column of the grid is all about self. The second column of the grid is all about others. Pretty clear. The first row is all about awareness, and the second row is all about management. So if you take the intersections together, we have self-awareness, we have self-management, awareness of others, and then relationship management. Does that make sense? So the top is, I have to know what I'm feeling inside, or I have to know what my skills are in order to manage them. So first things first. And then others awareness, I think of that as your antenna. How high and how sensitive and how accurate is your antenna to the room you walk in, for example, or to the tone or demeanor of somebody when you're having a one-on-one. So awareness of others, where you're aware, okay, now that you're aware though, how are you at using the skills of, say, catalyzing change, empathetic listening? How good are you at using the skills you need in order to adapt your style to what you learned about others? Let's make this real. We're going to do an exercise, and it's an exercise that we're going to have to get real. Please don't use real names. You can say information about you, but please don't say information about other names. Hang on here, I'm going to catch up real quick right here. We're going to do an exercise next that I call oops. Yep. We're going to learn from a time where we didn't get things right. Remember when you were in school? Remember the playground when you'd be playing 2 square, 4 square, whatever, football, soccer, and somebody would say, no, stop, do over? Think of a time in your adult life where you wish you could have a do-over, right? We all know these times. So what I want you to do is take out pen, pencil, jot it on your phone if you want to, but think of a time or two where you messed up, where you wish you could have had a do-over in your professional life, where you made a mistake. And give me a thumbs up if you would, once you've jotted that down. And for those of you that are on this coffee cup conversation that have never made a mistake, can you call me? Because I want to interview you and I want to know how to be you, because it's definitely not me. Awesome. Awesome. Okay, here's what we're going to do. Now, you pick one of those situations where it was an oops, you messed up. And now let's go back to the quadrants. Which one of these areas tripped you up in that situation? Was it something, were you not aware of how you were feeling? So then if you're not aware of how you're feeling, you can't manage it. Or was it your awareness of others that tripped you up? Or was it how you managed a relationship? Which area tripped you up? And I do not want to know your specific situation, but if you'd put in the chat which of those quadrants tripped you up in the situation that you thought about, that would be great. And then we're going to dive in a little, and I'm going to ask one or two of you questions, if you're so brave, to tell us more. I won't ask you about details of the situation, but I'll just ask you to identify specific competencies that might have played into that oops. In the chat, please share with me which quadrant tripped you up, Q1, Q2, Q3, or Q4. Q4. Wonderful. I am going to quickly go to Q4 because I see, well, there's all over. You guys are in all the quadrants, which is wonderful. But let's start with Dr. Karma. Would you be willing to share more with us? And no or silence is a fine answer if you'd rather not. I think I also saw, okay, thank you, Laura. Oh, no worries, Dr. Karma. We're glad you're here, and this slide will help you too. Laura, would you be willing to share not your specific example, but if you're looking at on the slide, I put up some specific competencies that are a part of Q4, which is the relationship management part. If you look at those and think about your situation, are there one or two that can pop to your mind of, ooh, that might have been what tripped me up?
I know that I will do almost anything to avoid conflict.
Okay.
And I'm not the greatest salesperson as far as feeling as though I can influence others.
Okay. So thank you for sharing. And the neat thing about emotional intelligence and the model is that it moves from these big ideas, the quadrants, and then within that, there are 26 total competencies. And with each competency, so Laura, we might we all have so much to work on, but conflict management or influencing others. And the model, the emotional intelligence profile, has all these exercises and things that we can do in order to strengthen that muscle. And different situations and different roles require different levels of these competencies. So in the slides, and we will send you the slides, but I have put all of the competencies. We don't have time to get into all of them today, but I want you to know that we shared them all with you. And then I also have a resource for you that has all of the definitions of all the competencies and some more information if you'd like that. So here's what you can do literally today, if you want. Here's how you can strengthen your EQ. First, we think of a situation. We did that. Then we look at the competencies in the EQ quadrants where we might have fallen short. And then it's simple, but it's not easy. What I need you to do is every day for a week, let's do conflict management. I need you to rate yourself. How did I do today on conflict management? This is your opinion, 1 to 3. 3, I was amazing. Completely rocked it. 1, I ran away from it like the plague. So rate yourself and then write for 1 or 2 minutes only about the situations. Why do you think you did great? Or why do you know you could do better? So rate and write is a very simple way to help you increase your awareness and intentionality about a specific competency that will help you not to be tripped up the next time. No cost, because no cost, it's easy. So I would encourage you, if there's a specific area that you would like to improve on, do the 7-day rate and write challenge. You will really notice a difference, not because you acquired any new big skill yet, but you'll heighten your awareness of that specific competency and how you behave in different situations around that. If you'd like more information on the 26 competencies, I am going to give a QR code. I missed that. Okay, I'm going to give you a QR code with all of the definitions, an explanation of the quadrants, and if you want any resources on exercises to do to improve, let me know. But I'm going to give you a QR code about that next. There's so much for emotional intelligence. I hope that we've left you today with a few things. I hope that you're really clear on the difference between IQ and EQ. I hope that why EQ matters at work and in life is pretty clear to you. You might have a lot more questions, and I hope you do, but I hope that the why, the big why of why it matters is clear. And then finally, I hope you can pull away just a simple idea of how you can strengthen your EQ. And I really, really want you to hear that EQ is not something that I am good at or I am not good at. I really want you to walk away knowing that EQ is in the moment. I might fall on my face in one competency in one moment, and I might shine in the next. And that's what EQ is all about. And it's about falling on your face less. Not that you'll never fall on your face, but EQ can always be strengthened, and awareness is 90% of the challenge. Why did we talk about EQ today? Well, we talked about EQ because everybody on this call, Blake, Elizabeth, Laura, Alex, Adam, I can't see everybody's name. You guys aren't the 70%. No. Focusing on building and increasing your emotional intelligence quotient is one way to ensure that you and I am in that 30%. Thank you. Here now is the resources. So take out your phone, please. And the first QR code, if you're interested in the resource, it's free. The first QR code, if you scan it, it will take you to my website, and then there's a 3-page downloadable resource on social and emotional intelligence. The second QR code is if you'd like to connect on LinkedIn. I love sharing thoughts and insights and thought-provoking things on LinkedIn, but I'd also love to just get to know you if that's of interest to you. So grab your phones if you would like the resource or like to connect on LinkedIn. And if anybody doesn't know how to do the QR code, let me know, because it wasn't that long ago that I just thought these looked like funny things of ants. Usually if you just do your camera and take a picture, it'll take you right to the website. All right, I'm gonna leave that up, but I would love it if you would unmute. I might be breaking the rules, Adam or Blake, but if you'd unmute, and I'd love to hear, what questions do you have? Or yeah, what questions do you have? Or what interesting takeaway? What resonated with you?